Today is February 6th, 2015, and yesterday I made a couple of clips about Robin Bechtold. And the second time that he raped me and the format he used. And a couple of things did come to my mind. I was trying to think, after I recorded what I recorded, I was trying to think if I had missed anything or that was maybe important in some way that I should add. And one thing that I remembered, which goes along with what I was talking about with his interrogation kind of questions, which he claimed was sensitivity training, I did remember that this was something, this quote-unquote sexual sensitivity training was actually something that a few United States government individuals had brought up when they were doing what they were doing to me. So, for example, when I was being forced to basically rehearse over and over how they wanted me to respond to different situations where basically I was getting raped, but they didn't want it to look like rape. One of the men actually specifically asked another man that was standing there one time, got into a big conversation about, well, some of these colleges are training their students in sexual sensitivity training, so what do we do in that situation? And they actually had a discussion in front of me, and I didn't forget it because it was a pretty long discussion. It was maybe a half hour to an hour, just talking about how some colleges, I guess all the way back then, in the 80s and late 80s, some colleges had already started incorporating a kind of like sexual harassment awareness kinds of training or class. And I'm not sure if it was maybe a couple of Ivy League schools that were doing that, or if it was public schools, but it was brought up. And what they were talking about, they were actually discussing, and one of the individuals that was there when they brought that up was George Bechtold. And another person that was there was Bob Jr. I don't know which Bob Jr. And then there was someone else there. There were a couple of other men that talked about it, but I can't really remember who they were. But it was a few different men who were bringing up the idea or hypothesis, well, okay, what do we do in this situation? Because I guess they were just trying all these different scenarios of how to make one thing sound like another thing. So they were basically using their kind of interrogation and forcing me to respond in a certain way, which they typically did, telling me not to look at them. So they would, part of the reason I kept my eyes closed most of the time when Robin was asking me these different questions is maybe because I was really drunk, but also I felt I couldn't open my eyes because a lot of the time when I was being raped and being forced to answer in a certain way, they were telling me, don't look at me. And sometimes they were having me look at them, and they had guns to my head and they would do different things, and that wasn't really necessarily part of what they were doing, because there were plenty of times I saw people and who they were and what they were doing to me. But there were other times that I was being forced to not look at them, to either close my eyes or look down and not direct my attention to their face and facial features. So I know that, so basically these government people were talking about how they could use this sexual sensitivity training or whatever as kind of a cover to make it sound like I was consenting to rape, when actually it was sort of a juxtaposition for they're training me to respond with yes answers and being agreeable to them about other things, including questions sort of like the ones that Robin would ask or someone would ask with this quote-unquote sexual sensitivity training. But they were coming up with all kinds of ideas for ways to make it look, to get them off the hook and make it look like, if in the event something got recorded, to make it look like, oh, they were asking for consent, when really they were doing the exact opposite of asking for consent. They were trying to force me to, they were raping me, and knowing that I felt threatened, and then using that as a kind of cover for them. So when I first talked about the first rape that Robin did of me, and the socks, and all of the different like specific government code cues that he used, and how his family already had a history of being involved in that quote-unquote training of me, that combined with the fact that he then raped me a second time and used a different set of government cues and codes that I remember being forced to go through like repeatedly when I was a kid, that is pretty much concrete evidence that there was absolutely no mistake whatsoever, that he knew what he was doing, and he had premeditated what was going to happen, and Erica and he both had premeditated that. And then Erica's response later, when she contacted me on the phone, is she called me and she said, so how did everything go? She wanted to be the first to know what had happened, or what how I was reacting. And she didn't sound like herself. She sounded guilty. And I actually felt really weird talking to her on the phone because of what she'd done. And for Erica Ballinger, it was not going to be the first time that she did something like that to me either. And her family history was with raping me, holding me hostage in her house, and doing a lot of horrible things. And she actually, as I say, I think works for the FBI. She got a degree in accounting, said that she wanted to work for the FBI with accounting. She wanted me to be a reference for her. And I'm pretty sure that's what she did. So, and I think that once she got hired with the FBI, she was advised to cut off communication with me. And this is after she had several times participated in gang rape with me and facilitating that. So when she called up after this had happened to me, I was pretty upset, and I didn't really, let that be known. Really, I tried to hide that as much as I could. And she said what happened, and I didn't want to say, just come out and say, my dog wants to play right here. Nanette, come here. Off. Down. So anyway, when she called up, I didn't say, I was raped, because I didn't really feel like giving her that satisfaction of saying that. So but I did say what happened. I just kind of came straight out and I said I had sex with Robin. And I wanted to see what her reaction was, because I wanted to see what her reaction was. And she said, and then she pulled this whole thing of acting like she was some innocent person, and said, oh, I'm very disappointed in him. And I said, why? And she said, well, you were drunk, and he knew that you had had too much to drink. She said, I'm disappointed in Robin. And the thing is I had seen Robin and Erica talking privately before they had decided to have her not give me a ride home. I mean, she didn't feel bad about what had happened. She had participated in it. And then the second time she did it, she pulled another kind of sneaky move with a different government agent that she knew. And she again tried to play off the idea that she was innocent and had been attempting to protect me when she wasn't. I mean, her entire family had nothing to do with trying to protect kids. They were part of a pedophile group that was raping and torturing kids. And and it wasn't just her stepmom and her mom that were electrocuting me with the box and the head brace and that kind of thing. They were letting their daughters do it too, like Christy, and holding me hostage at Christy's dad's house over in California, and at Erica Ballinger's house in Tualatin, Sherwood area. So that was Erica Ballinger's response. And then after that, she didn't call again, and I wasn't in touch with her. We didn't do anything like as friends, even though she was just right there next to, you know, in the area. And I didn't talk to I didn't talk to any of those government individuals again after that. Not one single person called me or wanted to hang out or find out how I was doing. Nobody called me the next year about getting together for a holiday thing. It never happened after that time. It was kind of like they all got together, got me drunk, deliberately forced me to get into a car with Robin and supposedly driven home, misled me, and had me raped. And it was all government coordinated. And when I was trying to call my parents from his car, it was actually using his cell phone. I didn't have a phone on me. And I asked Robin, I said, can I use your cell phone? And he said, why? I said, I need to call my parents. And when I tried calling, I couldn't get a hold of them. They didn't answer the phone. But he wasn't very happy. I noticed he wasn't happy with the idea that I was trying to contact my parents. And I made it sound really casual when I did, you know, like I wasn't worried or something like that. But I made a serious effort at trying to protect myself, and they all knew it. So anyway, that is a little more information about some of the government things that Robin did for raping me, which I think is important because, well, just because it was one of the quote-unquote methods that had been discussed by government individuals for purposes of concealing the idea that they were raping me and that I really wasn't consenting, but it looked like I was. So I guess that is what I wanted to add to that in her response. And next I'm going to talk about what happened in between the time, you know, I said that there was Josh Gadtop, and then a year later it was Robin Bechtold. In between that time, between Josh and Robin Bechtold, I ended up getting into what I thought at the time, I did think was I halfway thought was a consensual relationship, and I didn't realize he was actually a friend. I didn't recognize him because he was a lot older, and at the time I didn't realize that he was actually a very good friend of George and Janet Bechtold's and Robin Bechtold and their family. He was from Wilsonville. He was part of their whole TAG, Talented and Gifted government team. And the Bechtolds at one time had been over to their house in Wilsonville, which is right next to Sherwood, where the Bechtolds lived. When I was a kid, I was trafficked over there to the Haynes house. And the kid was Brian Haynes. And he lived in Wilsonville with his parents. And they were good friends with the Bechtolds and some other government people that had trafficked me and done horrible things to me. And they electrocuted me at the Haynes house and assaulted me. I was assaulted and raped by one of the adults there, with a couple of the kids looking on. And when I then found out, well, then when I went out a couple of times and got into a very short relationship with Haynes, I didn't realize he was that same kid.